I know I mentioned AI earlier, but it's changing the absolute mortgage landscape right now. This is something that 3 years ago wasn't really a huge conversation about AI, but it's a huge part of my business every day and how we leverage it with generating business and to take auxiliary tasks off of the advisor. I think there's going to be 3D printed homes. I think the home is going to connect with the consumer and they're going to know when the laundry should be done. And I think the whole landscape over the next 10, 15 years is going to look completely different than the lending that we know traditionally now.
Welcome to the 256. I'm JD, host of the 256 Investor Podcast. This is for both the seasoned investor building a portfolio of rental properties that wants to sharpen their skills and for the potential investor that needs to answer some questions and gain strategies to invest with confidence. We'll discuss all things investing, legal, tax planning, acquisitions, insurance, and of course, we'll discuss real life experiences with 256 investors. Whether you live in the 256 or invest from afar, this is for you. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us for another show, the 256 Investor. We have Tyler Wilson with us today.
Hey.
Tyler, see you a lot. Good to have you back here.
Yeah.
Always good to talk with you. You've been in the lending business for a long time. 15 years, 20 years?
15 and some change, I guess, going on right around there. So, yeah. Long enough to where I can say how long I've been doing it, right? You know, when I first started, the answer to that question was, feels like forever. Because I didn't want to tell somebody. I was like, oh, yeah, like 6 months ago or a year ago, right? But yeah, I'm seasoned enough now and enough gray hairs to be able to tell you how long.
Well, both of us. Well, you've been preparing this for a long time. I think you studied finance or something of that nature in college.
Mm-hmm. That is correct. Yep. Studied bachelor's in finance, concentration in banking and investments. Should have went maybe the master's route if I'd have played time everything correctly, but I graduated in that 07 window, which really led to me getting into the mortgage industry because I bought a home in 07, and guess what happened not long after I bought it, right? It wasn't worth what I had paid for it. The bubble and market crashed. So that's why I say I wish I'd just stayed in college a little bit longer. But ultimately, it was part of what led me to being a mortgage advisor. You know, the experience that I went through back then let me see that I didn't want to go through that. So it is part of the background. But yes, I do happen to have a finance degree, kind of fell into this industry, but you know, that's how it works and it's part of the plan.
Well, I can't believe I didn't know this already, but we have one more thing in common. We both bought our first home in 07.
Oh, really?
And I did not, it was turned out to be a great investment for me because it was a little townhouse. It was kind of secluded from the crazy inflation of the rest of the market at the time. But like you, a year later, not even a year later, things fell completely apart.
It was about 10 months, I feel like, yeah.
And I told somebody this on a show a few weeks ago. In 07, I decided I wanted to buy a house. And I think my income was like $36,000 a year. I was self-employed doing maintenance, painting, and stuff like that. And I decided it was time to buy a home. I had so little income, but I knew it was easy. I was hearing about how easy it was to get loans. So I walk into a countrywide office and there's like 15 lenders it's like out in cubicles. It was really weird. Yeah. And I just went to the first person available. And in 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes, I had a letter. They called it a quick and easy loan.
Right.
And they approved me for $160,000. Again, pulling in $36K income.
Man. Yeah.
And I didn't use all of that. I wasn't stupid enough to know that I needed to max out on what I was allowed to get.
Right.
But there was no documentation required. I seriously don't think they even got my tax returns.
Yeah, probably like a NINA, no income, no assets.
It was crazy. I got a piggyback loan for 10% that I couldn't put down. So I ended up putting no money down. I got a piggyback loan at 10%. It was wild. Anybody who wanted a home could get one back then. And it was no shock.
I hadn't even started my job yet. I was fresh out of college. Yeah. Mine was in Mississippi. Where were you at? Was it in Alabama?
It was in Alabama.
Yeah. So
that was in Lee County.
Mine didn't appreciate it or anything like that. Yeah. Mississippi, unfortunately, now is on a comeback tour.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, 6 months later, Countrywide went under and it was acquired by Bank of America, right?
Yeah.
And they're no more. And then in late 09, I went to buy my second house and it couldn't have been more opposite. It was
SAFE Act came out.
We need to get your physical measurables, your blood sample,
name your firstborn child after the lender. Yeah,
it was the total opposite.
Yep. Yeah, that was the SAFE Act time frame, that 09 when it came out. Fortunately for me, when I got in the industry, was the 2011, 2012 time frame. So all the stuff that you could do, I was a victim of, but I didn't have it in my head as a lender, like, oh yeah, you used to be able to do this. So I only knew, the hard way. And I was like, well, if I can be successful the hard way, if it ever gets any looser or, loosens up at all, then it'll just be easier for everybody. But yeah, back then it was crazy. Absolutely crazy.
My first two home purchases, I saw the extreme ends of both of it. And now, I mean, I feel like it's stabilized a lot, and I feel like things are reasonable where they're supposed to be. And
there's safeguards and things in place, and there'll probably be some changes with Fannie and Freddie going public, once that opens up. I mean, about 5% of that going public. And when that happens, you're going to see more of the AI and technology enter into
absolutely
the government lending side and their automated underwriting systems. That's going to be fun to watch. The industry's changing big time right now. Good old AI.
Well, you've been investing in one way or another for about 20 years. I know that's not the majority of what you do to earn income. I mean,
right.
You are a full-time lender, but how much time do you devote to that? Has it been different percentages of your time devoted to investing over the years, or just as things come along?
I think it's been a little bit of windows. I think right now we're in one of those windows, honestly. It has nothing to do with me sitting here on this podcast that's for, investors in North Alabama type of thing. I really believe we're in that window. COVID, of course, was a time frame where you could buy investment properties and your rates were 2% and 3%. So there was windows there, and with Airbnb kind of being newer on the scene and how some of that was treated and being able to buy second homes at a lower down payment but have the same interest rate as a primary, they changed that, of course, but you had that window there. So that was a time frame, of course, as they say, if the sun's out, make hay. Mm-hmm. So that's when I saw a window to start acquiring properties. Now, of course, over time, there hasn't been a bad window per se in North Alabama. It's always been good. It just hasn't been to where maybe people that are families or individual investors that are trying to build a portfolio for their future generation. Wall Street investing in North Alabama, yeah, that's a sign, but that's deeper pockets. That's a different than your individual that's trying to acquire investment properties. The main reason I purchased investment properties is I wanted something physical, tangible to hand down to my children. So when I saw the windows to be able to acquire, it was, some cash flow strategy, but a little bit for me was a little bit longer term. And I think it depends upon what zip code and what area you're shopping and what you're looking at, what type of strategy you may approach with it. But ultimately for me, that's when I saw the opportunity was to build something for my kids to be able to have, whether they wanted to take over a property or we sold it for the appreciation to then use for education or other things that they could have. I felt it was a safer play, and then also seeing the appreciation and where Huntsville and the market and people are relocating, putting money into this market was a good decision.
But you have a lot more control over it too.
If you're
just putting in your money into stocks and other investments, I'm not saying they're not safe,
right?
But you don't have much control in the real estate. You're on top of things, and you are as informed as anybody in this market.
Correct.
And you have a lot more control in the end.
Correct. And then I think anywhere that you see the growth and the appreciation and normalization in home prices also being affordable in the 300 range, and certain zip codes, like right now we have, I think it was 140% increase in the traditional Huntsville market of homes that were 250,000 less coming back up on the market. And these are older homes that need a little bit of work, nothing fancy, but those are going to be more of your cash flow type of properties. And then Madison City is going to be more expensive, but it is more of probably your midterm rentals is a good strategy there, where you're able to do more executive furnishing, get places that are set up for engineers and people that are coming in. And of course there's the school districts there that are a huge demand. So Madison is sometimes maybe a little bit less of a cash flow play, but can be more of a long-term, hold. And then you've got the Research Cummings Park kind of corridor there. That was one of the few zip codes that continued to appreciate while everything else normalized. And that just really shows that it's the jobs there. The people that are able to go in and on and off the Arsenal. You got Mazda, Toyota. So that Research Park Cummings corridor right there is another big zip code pocket that I think is one that you kind of get the best of both worlds. You can have appreciation in the future on your 3-5 year hold type of game plan, and then sell to somebody that's relocating, coming into the market, engineer, somebody along those lines. So it depends upon like what area. I'm a little bit more heavy in Madison market. It has to do with more of the school districts. And I saw a lot of people as they relocated and moved here. I'm one of them. When my family came in 99, my dad's military. And so the decision to move into Madison was strictly school driven, right? So there's different strategies depending upon where you're at. I think if it's cash flow, you're looking at more of the older Huntsville zip codes that are now coming back on the market. I mean, it was a 140% increase year over year on those price points. And then you have these new constructions that you can get in the 300, 370 range. You can rent those out. Right now, we got about an 18% vacancy in North Alabama. We have still a cost of living lower than other markets. We have the average median income. So when you look at all of those and you see this, Wall Street, as I call it, coming in, North Alabama is still growing, and even at a modest 3 to 5% appreciation. And one of the things I can do for my investors also is plug in the zip code or a specific MLS listing or house they're at and help them forecast what their appreciation will be. And you'll see a lot of times in some of your traditional Huntsville zip codes, you'll see at years 8 through 15, they're getting anywhere between 12 to 20% appreciation. So it does snowball a little bit further. And we know all what's relocating in this market too, right? You know what's coming in. There's going to be more demand for it. So
Yeah, I think the key is a little bit of everything. I love the Madison properties, but like you're saying, they're not going to cash flow that great.
they're not going to
The
cash flow as
South
much.
Huntsville stuff, the stuff I bought 10 years ago is really doing great.
Yeah,
Things I got in Morgan County and Decatur, those are some of my best properties,
I believe it.
but they're probably not going to have the same appreciation long term that you're going to get in the city of Madison. But spreading it out and doing a little bit of everything is the way to go for me.
Well, and that's where you see the midterm rentals growing a little bit more now. It's something I personally am a little bit more intrigued by in certain areas because we do have a good bit of nurses, physicians, people that in the medical industry are growing in North Alabama as well. And then, of course, all the relocations and the people that are moving here that don't quite know where they're ready to what city exactly, which community, but they're being stationed or relocated here. Just literally yesterday talking to a guy that's wanting to buy a property, and he doesn't know if he's going to buy Birmingham or Madison or where, but he knows that his employer is going to be paying for it for him. And so right now his employer is paying his rent. So for an investor, you're going to have people that are on not just government contracts, but working for corporations that they're getting a housing allowance. And so they'll pay for that furnished place $1,800, $2,000 a month, which on a midterm is going to give you more cash flow than on a long-term rental in that scenario. So I agree the Huntsville market, more of a cash flow. And I talk about some of the older zip codes, older homes that are now reemerging on the market. Rates are at a 3-year low. So you have people that are ready to get out of the golden handcuffs of maybe their 2%, and they want to get out of that older home, and they're going to go into some new primary of the 300 to 450K range. And they're going to take their step up, which is opening up all this lower inventory for investors right now.
Yeah, and so you mentioned we are a really good window for investing, and I agree. The last 6 months or so, I think, have been a key time if you're an investor
Yep.
because as those rates continue to come down, all these buyers who have been sitting on the sidelines because they don't like the rates, and all these sellers who don't want to sell and give up their 3% rate for a 7% rate, well, they might sell that 3%
For a
for a 5.5, for a five
Correct.
and a quarter. You're going to see the market go wild.
I agree.
And it's going to be a really tough time for investors. I think they've waited too long because people keep saying, I'm waiting for rates to come down. Well,
Right.
so is everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's going to be
But
a
when's
really
the
difficult game
bottom,
to
right?
play.
Like, how do you know, like, oh, that was it. This is the moment. And then when the average person says, because the news or somebody says, hey, this is the low. I mean, we had our 3-year low right now. Applications are up and stuff like that. But, as we continue to go down, Fed will do another Fed cut, probably another. What's happening with the tariffs, it is working. It is helping bring down cost, oil per gallon prices. All of this leads to that inflationary number that drives the interest rates up. So we're seeing that come down to where now the Fed is feeling confident to go ahead and start lowering the Fed rate. So we're going to continue to see rates into 2026 on an escalator down. For the past couple of years, we've just kind of had these pockets where you have like for 2 weeks this little dip and then it shoots right back up. So you really haven't had a steady. It's just been a little bit of a wavelength type of flow. pre-COVID rates, 4 to 6% for, I don't know, 7 to 8 years. So I have a feeling that's really where we're going to land back. Your Govy loans and stuff, high fours, maybe mid fours, and your conventionals are going to be fives and sixes, depending upon investment property versus, whatever else you're doing. And that's where the traditional financing and having a team between your insurance agent, what title company you're closing with, who the lender is. As an investor, the traditional financing is how you build future wealth. You're not using up all your money. I mean, if you have the money to just pay cash and you can just dump it into properties, I guess go for it. If that's what you feel is the best way to leverage funds. But even at 6-7% interest rates, or even at 8%, the appreciation is going to outpace the cost and what you're going to be able to still rent it for. And depending upon which zip code, that's the beautiful thing of Huntsville and North Alabama, is that you could have 3 or 4 different investment portfolio strategies in the same market.
Yep.
And not have to be spread across multiple states or anything like that.
What was your rate in '07 when you bought your first property?
I did the Mississippi bond program, so it was supposed to be a bond loan, right?
Has a bond.
Yeah, and so it's supposed to be, I guess those bond programs.
Apologies to all our listeners in Mississippi.
Yeah, sorry. Hey, I've got teams in Mississippi, so let's go Mississippi. They're actually, it's I hate to say actually, but Mississippi is on a comeback tour for real right now. That same city that I used to live in was Ocean Springs, Mississippi, and when I had first bought that house down there, I mean, you either worked for the ship systems or on a shrimp boat, or you went and drove over to work at the casinos, basically, right? And so that market now, I've heard or I've seen also that it's Ocean Springs is like a destination spot now and grown so much, right? So if I could have held for however long that was, 20 years, I guess, then maybe I could have, but I did the bond program, and I think it was a 6.25, and that was lower than like where they were at the time.
So mine, same year, I got it at 6 5/8.
Yeah,
and people were like patting me on the back out the door, like, this is so wonderful.
Yeah.
Like all the older people, people who are 10 to 50 years old, they had never seen rates that low, and they just thought that like I'd hit the lottery.
Right.
6 5/8, and now people are just like appalled by that, rolling their eyes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
People just get conditioned to different things.
Yeah,
all they know. But I don't think people are waiting for rates to come back to 4% flat. Like I said,
I mean, there are people that think that.
But I think people have been trained that it can get worse. And if it gets back to 5.5%, like, I'm all in, whether I'm buying or selling.
Oh yeah,
people are going to be.
Well,
back
and that's
in
the window
game.
now. I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's the window now, and it's not to that low number where the common person's like, oh, this is the time to in the market, because that's going to be the millennials. The largest purchasing demographic right now is them. And like 54% of them or 52% haven't bought a home yet still. And they're living with roommates and mom and dad and getting married later. And of course, when you get married is, one of the largest reasons, or having a child is one of the largest reasons to purchase a home. So you're going to see them flood the market, and you're kind of seeing a little bit of it, but it's still a little bit of this lack of confidence that you get in the media, depending upon what outlet you're looking at. And is this really, which direction is this really going? But when you kind of look at the tea leaves and the numbers, I mean, there's no doubt we're headed in the right direction. Consumer confidence is up. And also, I mean, I know I mentioned AI earlier, but it's changing the absolute mortgage landscape right now. This is something that 3 years ago wasn't really a huge conversation about AI, but what it's doing now is allowing lenders to fulfill mortgages cheaper, quicker, faster, easier. I mean, just today, Amazon laid off 14,000 people, and they said because of AI, because they're more efficient, right? And so margins will increase as you're more efficient as well. So there's going to be this whole AI boom. I know Scott Bessent is basically saying we're like in the 3rd inning right now. So this is very early in what AI is doing. But it's a huge part of my business every day and how we leverage it with generating business and to take auxiliary tasks off of the advisor. That allows us to then focus in our genius zone of really helping people strategize on portfolios, how the right investment strategy might work. So AI does fulfill a lot of the paper pushing, and more accurately than a human can with human errors and catching things on pay stubs and documents. So it is making us as an industry more efficient. And it'll be interesting to see, I think there's going to be 3D printed homes. I think the home is going to connect with the consumer, and they're going to know when the laundry should be done. And I think the whole landscape over the next 10, 15 years is going to look completely different than the lending that we know traditionally now. So I think it's going to get cheaper and a little bit easier, but that's a ways away. And at the end of the day, you still have to have real estate, in my opinion, to build a full, complete portfolio. And North Alabama, man, is got 3-4 different investment strategies for you to pick from.
As important as AI is to cutting out clutter, paper pushing, and stuff like that, I still think the old saying, like your greatest resource is not employee, but good employees.
Correct.
And I know you've had the same team of people around you for a long time. Josh has been with you forever, ever since I met you, I don't know, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You've had the same processor.
Yeah,
If that's the right title I'm using.
No, Josh is like a Swiss Army knife. He's kind of more like a sales manager now. I mean, the team has grown. It's in multiple states and stuff. So we've been fortunate, or I've been fortunate as well, to take a model and a system that works for me, the clear to close team process, as we call it, or accidentally close more loans, right? And be able to plug the correct advisors into it. I do think AI will replace loan officers. Loan officers are the ones that you call, they ask you, what's the sales price? What do you think your credit score is? And they slap some, loan estimate or rate sheet, on an email PDF and send it to you. But they're not really strategizing with you how to leverage your funds, reinvestment strategies. Those are advisors. Mortgage advisors won't be replaced. What people want is they want quicker, faster, cheaper, and easier. That's what they want. What people need is coaching, guidance, and advice. So that's where you bridge the two gaps between them. And that's what I think a lot of companies have been trying to solve over the years is we can generate top of funnel leads, right? People that are interested and want to buy homes. But traditionally, these top of funnel leads would work with a call center, and not downplaying any of the call center people out there, but most of them, my joke but serious is, if I run into one of my customers at Publix or at Walmart, I'm not going to duck behind the aisles. I'm going to introduce them to my children. Don't always get the same thing if you're just a number and a burn and churn, but the industry, more and more consumers are going online. And I mean, you got to think about it. Probably so many times for the podcast or other things that we just do in our life, like we don't really go to Google and search Google like we used to, right? We're asking AI, and it knows who we are. It knows what we like. It knows our preferences, and it's trained and learned by us. I mean, ChatGPT now has it to where like apps are built in ChatGPT. So Zillow was one of the first rounds. Spotify was one of the first rounds that you go in and you can, instead of being like, oh, like I want to discuss reinvestment strategies or different markets, and then it takes you to some link and then you go to another web page. Now it stays within, and you will be basically buying homes inside ChatGPT in the future. You will not have to even leave that sector. So advisors, though, are the ones that help that first-time home buyer who's stressed out about a certain scenario or process. Advisors are the ones that help the widow on downsizing and figuring out the best way to help set up the next half of her life, or however they might be leaving things for their children. As a group, we provide after closing, for a lack of better terms, a financial advisor that helps the consumer. So after closing, whether it's first payments, should I refinance? When do I reinvest? Do I go a different direction? So we take an approach with the team of before the transaction, during, and after, where most people are just loan officer, boom, closed it, and they're not thinking about afterwards and keeping a family. We don't call them files, we call them families, right? So keeping a family, whether you're an investor or not, right? I mean, these are all, a lot of times your primary residence becomes your investment property. Coaching people on that strategy as well. Like you may not intend to become an investor, but a lot of the townhomes we have here and the price points that are available for people to make it as their entry home could be part of their investment strategy to build a portfolio in the future, and then turn around and learn to do this. So when you have a relationship with the lending team and having the same group and team of people that I've been blessed to have, but then partnering with the agents and title companies and your own financial planners, I think every investor has to have a really good team. Some of them may try to chase rate or try to get the lowest rate. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. When you have a team and you're building your portfolio and they already know your finances and can help you add and stack properties, don't bounce around to different lenders just because somebody was an eighth or a quarter lower in rate, or maybe a little bit different in pricing. It's one of the things I really believe in, and a lot of the investors that we've been able to help, we're helping them get 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 properties, and they stay with us. So we know exactly what they're looking for. We're quicker, we're faster because of it, and we know what their style is, what they're looking for. And then that's when I can help them analyze the specific property on what is their rate of return. a lot of times the agents aren't able to provide that. The real estate agents, they can help with zip codes, what the rental, they can pull data, what vacancy numbers are. We all have access to that. But when it comes to cash flow and return and appreciation and how many years down the road you hold the property before you release it, that's our world. That's where we come into play.
Yeah, like Jerry told George Costanza, back on Seinfeld, cheapness is not a sense, George.
Right, yeah.
Just because you can find someone cheaper or a better rate doesn't mean you should do that. Like, you need to keep your network around you to be able to scale.
Correct.
And build a portfolio.
Correct.
And, it's a race to the bottom for the people who are always searching for someone who's just a little bit cheaper or something.
Oh, it's a huge race to the bottom.
Like I said, you've got your team, your title company, and your basic people that have worked with you forever. And you're more knowledgeable than most lenders out there. I mean, that's why I always come back to you to get updates on the market and all kinds of things, is because you're much more informed. You always have been. You've always had a good team around you. The clear to close team motto is the best out there.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the magic words in any transaction.
Clear to close.
Clear to close. That's what everybody wants to hear. And when you say something's going to close on this date, it's going to happen.
Well, it's your name, right? I mean, I think that's one of the things that our industry always kind of made a mistake is that, customers are accidentally guilty of this. They want that pre-qual letter, right? Like, I've applied, I want to make this offer. And so some originators are a little, they'll throw it against the wall, like, okay, because somebody says that they're good to go or whatnot. And that's your name on paper. And you can't really have longevity and be doing it as long as I have in the same market, in the same area, if you don't have quality behind it. And I've definitely seen a lot of realtors and loan officers or lenders come and go, whether it's just in this market or now they're doing something completely different. So, I mean, it has to be something you're passionate about. I always tell folks, like, don't let the passion get confused with emotion. Those are two different things, right? When we're fighting for a family or an investor to try to help them get to the next stage. And I think so many people look at investors also sometimes, not in a negative light, but like, oh, like they're buying their 10th and 11th property. These are people that don't have traditional 401ks sometimes, right? They don't have traditional IRAs and plans from employers and stuff like that. They're building their retirement and their future. My wife and I, we're not slumlords, right? We renovate and fix up the properties. We're trying to help somebody, hey, rent from us for a little while. It's a win-win, and then hopefully you can become a homeowner of your own and take that next step up or upgrade your property. So there are a lot of people that do this for their own families. Like I said, for me was, I don't have in the mortgage industry, you can get 401ks and stuff like that. Not every company matches and does all this stuff, but that's not completely a retirement plan. And so having properties, people also have to remember you can do this individually. You don't have to be some hedge fund, big Wall Street or deep pockets type of person. You can build a portfolio if you have the right financing team supporting you.
And you don't have to be very smart like me. You can graduate with a 2.6 GPA.
Yeah.
And build a really nice portfolio. If you have good people around you who are advising you well, and you have the motivation and the hunger to just work hard consistently over the years, you're going to be fine.
Correct. I'm not a realtor. I know a bunch in their area and stuff like that, but I'm not. That's their area of expertise, right? So you have a good team and they'll tell you. And that's the thing too. You need people that'll tell you, no, this isn't a good decision, right? I mean, if you're jumping around with different teams, different realtors and different lenders, then your transaction.
That team, you can't mean your friends or your preacher or your spouse necessarily, because they may be telling you no or yes for totally different reasons.
Correct.
You need people to give you sound advice without any emotion.
Facts don't have feelings.
You know what? Not a day goes by where somebody doesn't tell me I'm making a bad move in real estate. Why do they do that? Because they're jealous is what it comes to. Because it's something they would love to do, but they cannot get over the fear. But I can't tell you how many times I will buy a house and the neighbors will come over and say, "Would you pay for this?" And I'll tell them, and they say, "Oh, that's a terrible move. You're never going to get anything out of it. It never fails, Tyler. You know this."
Yeah.
And I bought a house just a year ago, almost to the date, and a guy named Ken is the neighbor. He walks over and he says, "Would you pay for this?" I told him. He said, "Oh my goodness." He said, "I paid $60,000 for mine, and you just paid double that." I said, "You bought yours, 20, 25 years ago." And he just went on about how I was never going to get anything out of this. And I just finally said, "Okay, well, thanks for sharing your thoughts with me." And it never fails. So you don't want to go to the neighbors and ask them if this is
You'd think
what
they'd be
you should
excited.
do.
Be like, oh, my house worth more because you just paid that much, right? Thanks for setting
Yeah,
some comps for
unfortunately,
me
it
or
doesn't work
something
that
like
way.
that. Yeah. No, most people don't really understand it. There's a whole, and it's not just interest rate. There's a group of people or a handful that I've come across that think prices are just going to go down. And maybe in certain markets and things, but that was because in certain markets there was a huge jump up, right? I mean, just ridiculous numbers and appreciation. So they're going to come down and normalize faster and harder than other markets. But we're in more of a normalization, and we are in that 350 average price point, 300, 360 kind of average price point. And I think that's where people were hoping that they'd buy investment properties in the twos, and they were going to see that because you could buy them. I mean, you could buy something for 150,000 or 125. You are seeing that now in the older zip codes, but new construction, I mean, you're going to be in the threes, mid threes or so. But on a national average, that is low. Our average median income is higher. Our appreciation is higher. So when you look at it, it is a great time for acquiring real
Our
estate.
property taxes are still some of the
Property
lowest
taxes
in
are still the
country.
lowest. Yep. Yep. So, and we have people that are still moving and relocating here. So the demand is going to continue to go up. I mean, there's only so much land, and people want to be homeowners. They don't want to be stuck in apartments. Everybody, I think, still has some of that COVID, remembering what it's like being in your apartment.
Yep.
And obviously why after that, everybody went and bought a bunch of houses.
Well, I think it's coming back in the near future. I mean, we're recording this in October 2025, and I think we're due, like you said, for another. The Fed's going to cut the rate again.
Yeah, a couple days. What is
couple
today?
days.
Yeah, tomorrow. Is it
And
tomorrow?
probably again in early 2026, right? I think that's what I'm
Yep.
hearing. And not that mortgage rates, they don't go directly in concert.
No, they usually go up after the Fed
Right,
cuts the
right.
rate. Yeah, that's always the thing. It's baked into the rate sheet. So like everybody already knows and anticipates because of what's in the data that the Fed is going to cut the Fed rate. And so all investors have already baked that into their rate sheets prior to that. So typically, I mean, I should say more statistically speaking, when the Fed lowers the Fed rate, the next few days or the day of or the next few days after that, rates go up. And then they'll kind of settle in that area, but it's already kind of baked into it. And a lot of it has to do with commentary too, like what the Fed will say, what their stance is, how they see or interpret the data. And that's always kind of been the hard part over our past year, is that what the data says versus what is verbally being told in the press conferences. It's been a little bit of a tug of war. So I think that's also for 2026. There may be some changes in positions of who sits in what chairs. And I think some of the commentary will also have a different viewpoint to go along with the data that's coming out. I know we're always optimistic. There's never a bad time to buy real estate. I mean, even when you go back to the time frame that we lived through of the '07, that foreclosure crisis, that is the only time frame that home prices dipped during a recession. And then at the end of it, though, they ended up higher than it started that recession. It was just during that middle '07, '08 window there, you had a dip. If you go back to every recession and everything prior, all the way back to the 1950s, home prices continued to appreciate through recessions. So, I mean, they're going to continue to go up in value. And there's not a bad time.
There's never a bad time. Even in like 2021, 22, when our market was going nuts and everything was really appreciating, I went and bought condos and townhouses because those were
Right.
the only affordable thing to me. But I didn't want to just stop.
Right.
Because it became tough. I went and bought condos that had been neglected
Changes your strategy.
30 years. Yeah. But those are really paying off right now. Really
Yeah.
paying off.
Yeah.
There's never a bad time to buy. I don't
Yep.
care what the market's like and the conditions are like. It's always a good time. What inspired you to kind of go down this path? Was it somebody you met in one of the cities? You said your dad was a military guy, and that's what
Yeah.
brought you to North Alabama originally. Did you meet somebody or get inspired in another state, or did your
Yeah,
dad?
to get into this industry?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I graduated,
both in the lending and becoming a real estate investor.
Yeah, no, I got you. So like when my dad, or when I graduated college and moved down to Mississippi, and then the bubble and all that happened, that was my first housing experience, right? Wasn't fun. We just talked about. And then when I moved to Huntsville, met my wife, and we were going to buy our first home together. And it was, literally like drive around type of thing, and like, so you see a yard sign or whatnot. And then I bought a foreclosed property. And Alabama is one of the 4 states that has a right of redemption. And unfortunately, the lender and the people that were helping me didn't understand this. And so my closing was just delayed, in 3 months. And then I rolled into October. So then taxes were assessed as a non-homestead. So then my payment was higher, right? So basically, I remember turning to my realtor and be like, man, how do you become one of these guys? Like, I have a finance background. Like, how do you become one of these guys? And my realtor was like, well, here's, how you do it, blah, blah, blah. So I went, and I remember I had a roommate, and I was dating my wife at the time. And I sat in this little closet and made myself a makeshift little like study area, because I was like renting a room for my roommate type of thing, and studying to take the SAFE Act. You got to take 20 hours and then go and take this test. I remember meeting my wife's dad and having a conversation with him one point where he was like, how are you going to take care of my daughter? And I was like, there's like this mortgage thing, man. And like, I'm taking this test right now. And so I love joking with Mike about that nowadays, of course. But that's ultimately how I got into it. I had two crappy experiences, and I felt I could deliver more. And then when I learned about the right of redemption and did the research and found out that I could buy a redemption bond for 1% of like the purchase price or whatnot, and I could get my wife into our new home and not be staying with family anymore after delayed closing after delayed closing, that's when I was like, well, I solved my own problem. I wonder if I can solve other families' problems. So that's really what got me into, doing that. And then I did see people building portfolios, and I was helping them build portfolios. So when I got to the stage of being able to have funds for a down payment, be able to purchase a property, the first home helped set that investment portfolio. I didn't rent it out right away, but I leveraged that to then buy another property. And then that property's equity, so doing a home equity line, was a way for me to then be able to then leverage the equity in my primary residence for down payment and cash flow to then purchase another one. And, I do have a background in concentration in banking and investments that's what I majored in. And so on the stock market and on the investing side was something that I was school taught, right? Trained to do. But I saw the volatility, and I also had the fear of the '07 and the unknown. And so I wanted something that I felt was more stable. And then being a military brat and my dad relocating here in '99, I saw the growth, right? It was the first time for me and in my own lens to see a city grow, to see the infrastructure, to see the people that were moving in. 1 in 5 people is an engineer, right? To see the type of people that were moving in. So now being in the industry for a few years, seeing what other people were doing and their interest in investing in Huntsville before it became, #1 city in America and everybody knew about it, but people that were smarter than me on the investment side reaching out to me as a lender, and they're telling me why they want to invest in Huntsville. And so when I started seeing what they were kind of teaching me, that's when I wanted to also get involved and start purchasing real estate. And I've done some of the short-term rental stuff too. I have short-term rental as well. So there's different styles and different markets in different areas, but focused on 256 in this area in North Alabama. Your midterm based upon certain zip codes, your cash flow appreciation based upon your older zip codes in Huntsville, and especially with those now coming on the market. Don't upgrade them fancy, just do the basic safety, get them, and then turn around. You're going to get more of a cash flow rent on those. And then you've got, your pockets like in your Madison and stuff. The homes are more expensive, but you're going to get a different renter, and those are more of an appreciation play. So I think you can kind of spread your chips around, and then having a realtor that really has your back, because as you know, man, you have a lot of properties, and you know that you can be in one zip code, but you're on one side of the street versus the other, or a block over. It's not the same. And that's one thing I can't implore enough to investors that reach out to me. Like, I can help you get qualified for whatever loan amount and whatever you're looking to do. But when you start looking at drilling down on the zip code based upon streets, got to have a local expert as an agent that really has your back, because you might look at it on paper and say this zip code cash flows, but they know their market, that you want to be that zip code but 2 blocks over.
Yeah, that's how it is in Decatur.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people who their market's done really well.
Yeah.
I lived there for a few years, so I bought multiple rental homes, and they do great. There's some of the best properties out there. But what you just described, if you're in Decatur, if an investor calls me, I'm like, you don't need to be involved with this. It is street by street.
Yeah.
I don't care what you know about the zip code or read about the zip code. You take one turn, and it is a
It's not the
totally
same.
different world.
Yep. Yeah, that's why you got to have a team as an investor, man. You got to have people that know. And people overlook the title company side. I mean, technically by law, the title company represents us as a lender, but there's that kind of unwritten rule, sellers sometimes picks or who may pay for closing costs or concessions, and sellers right now are paying a good bit. Investors a little bit different. You're limited a lot of times on your traditional financing, limited to 2% seller concessions. But if it's general real estate, people will come off sales prices right now, come down. It's just the one home they're looking to sell. And so you're seeing a lot more of where you might not get a bunch of concessions as far as cash to close, but you'll see price reductions and drops, especially in your general real estate. Builders a little bit stronger. You know, they don't like to drop their sales prices for future comps in their communities and stuff.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that, because every investor needs to have that conversation with their lender about what is allowed. 2% is the maximum allowed.
Yes.
From a seller concessions.
Fannie and Freddie, your traditional, we would call it, which most people want that traditional because of the rates and terms and the financing. You know, there's the hard money lending, and it serves its place, and it's more of your wham, bam, quick, unique properties, got to get it closed, but that is not your long-term play. That's not where you build the, you know, the wealth from and the portfolio from. You're not going to build them off the hard money. It serves its place, but ultimately you want to land in the traditional financing world. And there are non-QM investors that you can get 4, 5, 6% seller concessions and buy it as an investment property. Non-QM will allow you to get gift funds. Non-QM will allow you to purchase in the name of an LLC or an entity. These are not things that Fannie and Freddie allow, but Fannie and Freddie have the lower down payments, the more attractive rates and terms and pricing. They're going to be better for your cash flow options. But there is the non-QM, and there is the cash side of it that is part of the game plan, just different strategies depending upon what you're looking to do and what your situation is. I mean, there are a lot of W-2'd folks that buy investment properties. Then there's a bunch of self-employed people that don't show money on paper. And so maybe the DSCR, we're using the rental income to qualify, is the play for them. So knowing that you've got a team that has all the different avenues between the traditional Fannie, Freddie, being able to go non-QM with unique programs and products, and then also working with hard money lenders that can get you to bridge the gap, and then you're refinancing out of that. It's just, you got to watch for prepayment penalties and some of the things, you know, when you get into hard money lending world, they make the rules.
Yeah, the hard money world is not something I get into a lot, just because I think it's a major slippery slope.
I agree.
If you're not a really experienced and really older, wiser investor, you can get into a lot of trouble with that. And I'll say traditional lenders that you've always been with, they don't want properties on their books. Like, they're not looking to, you know, take possession because you failed to make payments.
Right.
I don't know if all that's really true in the hard money world. I think there is a little bit of the
well, the interest rates are so high that they're charging.
I'm coming for you, and I'm not wasting any time.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I don't recommend that a lot of people go down that. They're a loan shark. You got to be really careful. You got to be older. You got to be wiser. And I don't recommend that anybody that's just getting into this, or they're in their mid-20s, I don't recommend they go down that route.
I don't think that's where you start.
Been in this a long time.
I think it's a tool in your tool belt, you know, but you don't start off, you know, making the birdhouses using the power tools, right? You're using hand saws and glue and little nails, right? And I think eventually you get to the point where you can leverage other tools in the tool belt, but there's a lot of risk with hard money lending, but I do see it as a play for people in certain scenarios. Unique distressed properties, you can use them to renovate them and then refinance out, or maybe sell it. There's different strategies, but the big push has always been more of Fannie and Freddie.
Yep.
I mean, that's where it's more attractive rates, terms, and pricing, but there are different rules. Like I said, investors, they don't allow gift funds.
Well, they fluctuate. At one time, a single person could only have 4 mortgages.
Yeah.
And then, because it was 10, it got reduced to 4.
And then you had a certain credit score you had to have.
Up to around 10.
It's 10 now.
And you have to have cash reserves, and these things really fluctuate. So there have been limited times where it was limiting to an investor. But I think right now we're in a good place where investors can go that route and don't have to worry about hard money.
No, I mean, in my book, me personally, get to 10. Finance 10 properties. Then when you're looking at 11, 12, 13, 14, where you're looking at 5 units, 6 unit or more. But if you're doing a 1 to 4 unit and you are, I say, do your traditional financing until you get to 10 finance properties. And then when you start buying 11, 12, 13, 14, then we start going non-QM in that world. So when you start getting outside of that box. And then for those that can't go traditional, that's what non-QM is there for.
Yeah.
That's what it's there for. Subprime back when you did it, right? You know? heartbeat in a social, no income, no assets, non-QM just means
I'm not a
that's not a
genius,
Fannie
but I
Freddie.
said there is something wrong here.
Yeah.
Almost 20 years ago, like this cannot hold
Oh,
up. They gave me
when
this
I
piece
look
of
back,
paper
I
within
can't
5 minutes.
believe. Yeah, I got a loan. Same thing. I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, like the stuff you have to do to qualify for a mortgage. Like I just graduated college. I didn't even have my job. Like it was crazy. It was
Well,
crazy.
thankfully, there were people like me and you who are always going to pay their debts.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think for every one of me and you, there was like 3 or 4 people who had no intention of ever.
No, I remember writing that check for, I think it was like $21,000 after negative rent for however many years and paying the difference, an alligator property, right? I had an alligator property. I rented the place out because I couldn't sell it. It would have been I was just out of college. I didn't have any money, right? So if I sold it, like, where's any of the money? And then I'm a finance guy, so I'm like, I'm not going to
There was no
foreclose.
exit strategy.
Yeah, I was like, I can't let that happen. I just went to school about all this stuff, like I can't go that route. I didn't want to do anything else, but I was like, I guess I'll just rent it. So I had negative rent for a while, paying the gap, the difference, moved back home with family. And then I was probably about a year into my marriage, and I remember I was actually on a trip in Oregon for work, and at this thing called Building Champions, and I had to go to the little like lodge and sign the closing paperwork, and then drop a check in the mail for 21 grand after I sold a house for a loss, right? But I look back and it was the best $21,000 I ever wrote. I learned from it. It was life tuition. It didn't scare me to buy more properties and do it again. It just made me wiser. It made me smarter. And it gave me more confidence knowing that the laws and things that are in place now were to prevent the crap that, I went through and that you went through.
God, I'm glad that didn't stop you. It just inspired you
It did.
to continue forward. So.
I didn't know it at that time. Right. I didn't know it at that time. It's hard to see the forest through the trees. Then moving back home, then the second experience really got me to where I was like, I want to figure this thing out. And I remember, I'll tell you, this is a quick fun story to also you probably never heard me say this about I almost quit this industry about 3 different times. And the first time I was probably in my first year, maybe 10 months into it. And I was working for this lady as her assistant. She paid me $2,000 a month to be her assistant. And maybe if she closed, I think it was like $1 million or $2 million a month. I think I got like $1,000 bonus or something like that. And I remember one month, she didn't close any loans or something like that. Goose egg, I guess. Those are horrible when they happen, if they do happen to you. And she had to write me my measly, what I considered measly $2,000 check. So she ends up quitting. And I showed up to the office on Hughes Road in Madison. I show up and I walk in. I'm like, man, where's the plant at that was over there? I'm like, where's this rug go? Like, there's stuff that's missing. This doesn't look right. And so she ended up leaving. Branch manager calls me and says, hey, I'm going to come sit down with you. Drives over, sits across from me like we are now, and says, hey, I want to let you know I don't have any other loan officers that need an assistant. You're going to be 100% commission. So I'm 10 months into the industry and I get told I'm going to be 100% commission. Well, that was on a Monday. That Wednesday, we had a scheduled C-section for my firstborn. Mm-hmm. And so going into it, I remember I was like, I need a paycheck. Like, my wife is about to have a baby. Like, she's not going to be working for a while. Like, I've got to do something. So I was going to go be like a teller at a bank or do something like that. And it was my dad that was like, dude, you studied in a closet. You went and took this test. He's like, a man is defined by the way he handles himself in an adverse situation. So once he said that, I was like, okay, I can't stop doing this. But it took a couple years to kind of get that snowball rolling. But that was a big, checkpoint for me on, hey, you're going 100% commission. You're about to have a family and you're going to need to take care of them. What are you going to do? So I think this job can be very rewarding and very fulfilling for people. You don't have to get into this industry to understand, mortgages. I share all of this because I am an investor myself. I am a mortgage advisor, and yes, I run a team and I'm a big mortgage nerd. But I do this to help people build their generational wealth for their families, because I have no idea what the future is going to look like for my boys. I just know that if I have something that continues to appreciate, they'll have something that I can hand down to them that they can use, whether it's for school in the future or starting their own, family, or using it for money for a down payment for their first house, etc.
Yeah, like I said, you're one of the most knowledgeable people that I can talk to about this business, and you definitely have something good to tell anybody who asks. So I always appreciate that. Yeah. Thanks for coming, Tyler. Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
How can people get in touch with you or stay up to date
Yep.
with what you're working on.
Well, you mentioned it earlier, our three favorite words, clear to close. So cleartoclose.com is where you can always find me. You can find the Clear to Close team. It's the easiest way. My number's on the website. You can contact me directly. You can schedule a call directly with me to pick my brain. We call them hopes and dreams sessions. So you can schedule a time to have a hopes and dreams call. Let me know what your hopes and dreams are, and I help reverse engineer that into actionable items.
Okay, cleartoclose.com.
Cleartoclose.com.
Tyler Wilson, thanks again. Thank you to AVO for recording this for us today. I'm JD. My time's up. I thank you for yours. This podcast is proudly sponsored by 256 Realty, investors helping investors. Visit us at 256realty.net. Big thanks to our production team at AVO Multimedia Services for producing, editing, and providing the music that brings this podcast to life. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe or follow the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or whatever platform you choose. We'd love it if you'd leave a comment, review, and rating. It really helps us grow and continues to bring you valuable content. And of course, don't keep all this knowledge to yourself. Share this episode with a friend who's ready to level up their investment game. To catch more episodes and video content, visit our YouTube channel at 256 Investor.